Take notes on the back. There's a place to take notes, and we'll get to what we call our next steps later on. So if you're watching online, we just want to say welcome to all those watching online. And if you could just put in the comments your name, where you're watching from, we would appreciate that. Otherwise, we just see a number. We just see numbers and we don't see a name. So that'll let us know you're watching with us. So I told you I'm going to be telling my testimony today. I'm actually going to be going back and forth between Joseph from the Old Testament, you know, the coat of many colors, Joseph, and my testimony. And I think when you put them together, it makes a really powerful testimony of God's power. I think you'll see what I mean. So I'll start with Joseph. Joseph was the second youngest of 12 brothers born to Jacob, also known as Israel. And Joseph was 17 years old, and he was a shepherd. So he did not get involved with the mischief that his brothers were getting into. In fact, he would repeatedly come back and tell his father what he was doing. How many of you know that's not going to get you in good with your brothers if you're just ratting them out all the time, right? But he was the favorite son of Jacob. In Genesis 37, 3-4, we read, "Now Israel loved Joseph more than any of his other sons, because he had been born to him in his old age, and he made an ornate robe for him. When his brothers saw that their father loved him more than any of them, they hated him and could not speak a kind word to him." So Joseph would have these dreams, and he was pretty naive, because if he knew better, he would have kept his mouth shut. But he would have these dreams about how his family, his brothers, were going to bow down to him, and he was going to be their ruler someday. You don't go and tell your brothers that. Like, they're not going to take well to that, right? And so that made them hate him even more. And they actually came up with a plan to kill him. They wanted him dead. And so, thankfully, his older brother Reuben talked the other brothers out of actually killing him. And when they had an opportunity, a caravan of Ishmaelites were coming through, and they sold him as a slave instead of killing him. They sold him as a slave, and they took him on up to Egypt. So Joseph was sold to Potiphar, who was the name of the captain of the Pharaoh's guard. His life was changed in a moment from being the beloved son to a slave in a foreign land of Egypt. I grew up the son of a preacher, and I gave my life to God when I was 6 years old. I was baptized at the age of 6.5. In fact, my dad said they had me stand on a chair because I was so short so everyone could see who was about to be baptized. And like, this guy. I was 6.5. And I was a good kid. I really was. I really didn't get in trouble with my parents. I basically just did what they told me to until my teen years. I was a really good student. I was a straight A student. I was in advanced classes. And I loved youth group. I loved God, and I loved being part of youth group. I didn't just go to youth group because my dad was the preacher. I actually wanted to go. I loved going. It was one of my favorite things of the week. And I loved going to church camp. I truly had a relationship with God as a kid and into my teen years. I was in marching band. And the summer between my freshman year of high school and sophomore year, we were at band practice, and some of the other percussionists in my section asked me to hang out with them. And I thought that was so cool because these guys were older and had driver's licenses, and some of them even had cars. And I was like, you want to pick me up and hang out with me? Cool. Little did I know what path that was going to lead me on. So we all became very good friends, and we started smoking cigarettes and very quickly moved into smoking marijuana heavily, daily, most weeks. Sometimes we would use LSD or drinking. And the interesting thing is I noticed in myself a difference. After smoking weed for a long time, I quit caring about school. My attitude towards school, towards my parents, just totally changed. I quit even trying in school. I just didn't care. I was like, I don't care what grades I get. And I got demoted into lower level classes, and I just didn't even care. And it was amazing that I saw that within myself. My dad, unfortunately, I also got in trouble with my parents frequently, and we would have fights and arguments. and I got grounded a lot. I feel like I was grounded about every other month for a month at a time. I was always in trouble, and my parents and I were just clashing, right? They tried their best. They didn't know what to do with me, right? They were just didn't know what to do. Then my dad got fired, and he tried to find a job. He got fired unjustly, and he tried to find a job in Michigan where we lived, and he couldn't. To keep us in that, around where we lived, he couldn't, and he ended up getting a job down in Memphis, Tennessee, working for a Christian college. And so me and my sister got dragged, kicking and screaming, down to a foreign land that we had never been in, known as Memphis, Tennessee. Back to Joseph. Joseph was a hard worker, and he would be recognized for his hard work and his integrity, and he actually got promoted. When he was a slave for Potiphar's house, Potiphar actually promoted him and put him in charge of all the other servants. So he saw something in him and put him at the top. The Bible says he was fair and handsome. In Genesis 39:6, God was with him, and God blessed his master through Joseph. Because of Joseph's faithfulness, he blessed Potiphar's household. Now, I said that Joseph was handsome, right? And apparently Potiphar's wife took notice of that and would make advances and hit on him many times, and he would always resist. But there was this one time where she actually tried to drag him into her bed and said, "Come to bed with me." And he was like, "No, I can never do that to my master." And he turned and ran, and she pulled his cloak off of him, his outer, his clothing. Well, she made up a false story that he tried to rape her, which was not true, and so he got thrown in prison. Once again, he paid the price for being righteous. So back in Memphis, I moved to Memphis, and I met a friend of my sister's, and eventually she turned into my girlfriend. We started dating, and about a year later, she became pregnant, and we were just teenagers. And so I wanted to do the right thing, and I married her. I asked her to marry me. And so little Eric was born sometime later. I wanted to step up and support my family. I was working at McDonald's at the time, and I said, "Listen," I went to my boss. I said, "Listen, I got a family now. I got to support my family. What do I got to do to make more money? Because I got a family now." And they said, "Well, become a salary manager." I said, "Okay, do it. What do I got to do to do that?" Right? Because I got to make more money. I got to get a place. And so I did. I got promoted. About a year and a half into the marriage, she decided she wanted to lose weight, and she got on these diet pills. And anyone who knew her would tell you that when she got on these diet pills, she became a different person. She changed. And all of a sudden, she wanted to start drinking a lot, and she wanted to go clubbing. She wanted to go to dance clubs and go clubbing a lot. We were already smoking weed, but she wanted to go drinking and clubbing all of a sudden. And I thought that was kind of strange. And then one day she came to me and said, "I want a divorce." And for me, that just came completely from out of left field. I had no clue that anything was bad or wrong, or I didn't know why this was coming up at this time. And I was raised that I didn't believe in divorce, that we were supposed to stay married. And so I didn't sign the papers for a few months. I fought it. I was like, no. I told her I'm not signing the papers. So she had moved out, got her own apartment. And one day she called me up and she said, "Jeremy, can you come over to my apartment? There's something I want to tell you." So I did, and was in her apartment, and she said, "Jeremy, I got to tell you something. I'm pregnant, and the baby's not yours." And so I'm putting the pieces together. I'm processing that oh, there's someone else, right? And this is what I said to her. I distinctly remember what I said to her. I said, "Well, if you were truly sorry, I would forgive you and take you back, and I would raise that baby as my own." And I meant that 100%. She said, "No, you don't get it. I'm with him now. It's over. I'm with him." And that's when it hit me oh, okay, that's why. Oh, it's over. So I finally signed the papers. I have the worst roommate you could possibly imagine move in with me to help me with my rent. He was on worse drugs than I was. And because of that fragile time in my life, and I think to try to numb the pain of everything, the divorce And also, when we got the divorce, the custody said I only got my son every other weekend. And that really tore me up. And I think the divorce and that custody, he brought in cocaine and other worse drugs. And I think I did that to try to numb the pain of everything I was going through, if that makes sense. Well, I had to kick him out. He wasn't paying his bills. He wasn't paying his part of the rent. I kicked him out. Then I couldn't afford to live on my own. So I asked my sister if I could move in with her. She said yes. She pretty quickly figured out I was on drugs really bad and kicked me out. So then I went and asked my parents, can I move in with you in Jonesboro, Arkansas? Thankfully, they said yes. By the way, my parents never stopped praying for me the whole time through all this. I'm convinced when I get to the later part of the story, that was one of the biggest reasons why. They never gave up on me, never stopped praying for me. Okay, back to Joseph. Once again, God is with him in all his trials. So he's in prison, but God blesses him in all that he does, it seems like, because he's a person of integrity. And while he's in prison, the warden actually puts him in charge of all the other prisoners. You see a pattern here, right? They recognize him for his work ethic, for his integrity. I want you to be in charge. Who does that, right? Who puts a prisoner in charge of all the other prisoners? It never happens. But there was something special about Joseph. And in prison, he interpreted dreams of two different people. There was the chief butler, also known as the cupbearer, and the baker. So they each had dreams, and he interpreted their dreams. He said, okay, cupbearer, your dream means in 3 days from now, you're going to be restored back to your position as cupbearer. Baker, sorry, but your dream means you're going to be hanged in 3 days. And they came true exactly as he said. Now, Joseph told the cupbearer who lived, hey, when you get out on the outside, tell them about me and get me out of here. Help me get out of here. He didn't. He forgot. So 2 years go by. He has to sit in prison for another 2 years, right? He's done nothing wrong. But what happened is the Pharaoh then had a dream of his own that none of his wise men could interpret, right? So they're like, is there anyone in the land who can tell me what my dreams mean? The cupbearer finally remembers, oh yeah, there was this guy named Joseph in prison. He interpreted our dreams accurately. You should go get him, right? So he comes out and accurately interprets the dream, says, your dreams mean there's going to be 7 years of plenty in the land and then 7 years of famine. And then he said, if I were you, I would use the 7 years of plenty to save up, to store up and build barns and store up so that when the 7 years of famine come, you won't starve. You'll have plenty to pull from. The Pharaoh says, that's a great idea. In fact, that's such a great idea, I'm going to put you in charge of it. And he promoted him and made him second in the land only to the Pharaoh himself, which is like king of all the land. Right? So after 13 years of suffering, 13 years, at the age of 30, Joseph is now made the most powerful person in all the known world, basically. So I'm in Jonesboro, Arkansas, and I want to get away from drugs. I really did. I wanted this to be a fresh move. When I moved from Memphis to Arkansas, I wanted to do a fresh new start and get away from the hard drugs. That was my plan. I transferred from the McDonald's in Memphis to the McDonald's in Jonesboro, and I meet this guy who is also an assistant manager who's a drug dealer. And he offers me some free drugs, crystal meth, and I end up getting hooked on crystal meth for 2 years. 2 years later, I end up going to jail for crystal meth possession, which is a felony. And about a month later, I got fired from my job. And those two things were a wake-up call for me. I was like, okay, what am I doing with my life, right? This is stupid. This is crazy. What am I doing? Now, I had been praying. It's interesting. Even though I ran away from God and rebelled against him for those 8 years of doing drugs, I never totally gave up on God. And every so often, I would check in with God and just send up a quick prayer and be like, man, God, what am I doing with my life? Like, why am I doing this? I don't want to do this. Why am I doing this, right? But when this happened, when the two things happened and I hit my rock bottom, I was like, okay, this is serious now. And I fell to my knees at the floor of my mobile home that I was living in, and I said, God, I don't want to do this anymore. Will you please save me from this addiction? I want off these drugs. I want to be done with these drugs, and I want to go back to living for you like I was before. Okay, about a month later, my friend Joey and his girlfriend come in, and they have a friend, a girl. She has a girlfriend that I meet. And guys, when I tell you this next part, that I have no idea why she was interested in me. I mean, I have no earthly idea, because I had been on crystal meth for 2 years. I was skin and bones, right? I was unhealthy. I was not healthy looking. Besides that, I drove a granny mobile. We called it the Gutless Cutlass. Okay? Why she wanted to be with me with the Gutless Cutlass, I don't know. But for some reason, she was interested in me. I think it was a God thing. So we start getting serious pretty quickly. And so she realizes we're getting serious. And she says, okay, Jeremy, if we're going to start dating, I have one rule of dating. I don't date guys who do drugs. So I process that. I'm like, okay, well, that's fine, because I don't do drugs. And I quit that day, cold turkey, no rehab or anything. God took the taste for drugs completely away from me. It's a miracle of God. Yeah. I say it's a miracle. He took the taste away. He used that girl as motivation, right? Like, I got to quit. I prayed that. I want to quit, and now here's this girl I'm interested in. It's time, and I quit. We start going to church with my parents, and my dad pretty quickly recommends that I work with the youth. Like, this church needs a youth minister. I'm like, what are you looking at me for? You know? And he's like, I think you can do this. I'm like, but I just got off of drugs. He's like, but you're done with them, right? I said, yeah. But I don't have any training. Show me in this Bible where it says you have to go through training to work with the youth. I said, it's not in there. Okay, so I did it. And in a span of a few months, there were 3 kids when I started, and in a few months there were 20 kids. It just grew like crazy. And that girlfriend says to me one day, she says, Jeremy, I think this is what you were meant to do in life. I think you are supposed to go into full-time ministry. Have you ever thought about going to college? And I was like, no. And so I prayed about it. I'm like, I think she's right. I think this is what I'm meant to do full-time. And so I applied to Harding University in Jonesboro, Arkansas, or in Searcy, Arkansas, about an hour away from Jonesboro. And I'm all excited, right? I'm going to college. I hadn't been to college yet. I should have been bound for college way back when with my, grades and everything, but I didn't. So I'm excited. I'm going to college. The recruiter, I'm doing all the applications and everything. The recruiter calls me up one day and he says, Jeremy, I got some news. Because you have a conviction that was a felony, your name is going to have to go before a special panel to decide if you can go to this college. I was like, what? No, that can't be right. So I'm like, okay, I prayed about it. I'm like, Lord, you got to make this happen, right? About a week later, he calls me back, says, okay, I got good news. Out of 10 people that went before the panel, only 2 got approved, and you were one of them. I was like, all right. Thank you, Lord. I think he wanted me to be in ministry. What do you think? I think he wanted me to be in ministry. So at the same time, so I moved to college. At the same time, my girlfriend decides to move back to her hometown, which is like an hour away from me, and breaks up with me. And I was really confused about that, because I was like, no, I thought God brought you in my life because we were going to get married. Like, I really did. Like, what's going on? But she was set on it, and I looked back and I was like, you know what? You ever hear these stories where an angel shows up and just helps somebody for a quick time and then disappears? And they were just there for a job to do by God. I think that's what she was to me. She was there for just long enough to be the motivation to get off drugs, get me pointed in the ministry direction, and then she was gone, right? Also, during this time, my parents helped me get custody of Eric, and so I would go to college as a single parent. Okay. All right, back to Joseph. So the famine brought people from all different nations to Egypt to ask for food, right? They're all starving, so including his brothers show up. So his brothers are there to ask for food, for help. Now, they don't recognize him, but he knows who they are, right? So he puts them to this test. He says that they're spies and that they need to prove they're not spies by bringing their youngest brother, Benjamin. So they're like, okay. So they go back bring Benjamin back on a different trip. And he through a series of twists, including his brothers bowing before him, just like his dreams said was going to happen, Joseph decides to reveal himself to his brothers. So they're happy, they reunite, but then their father died. And the brothers thought, oh no, now that our father has died, Joseph is going to take us out. He's going to take revenge on us for what we did to him, selling him to slaves when we were younger. And so they tell him that. They're like, please, our father said this thing that he would hope we would be reunited. Please don't take revenge. And he goes, revenge was the last thing on my mind. You are my brothers. And he forgives them, and he says this. Joseph said to them, don't be afraid. Am I in the place of God? You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good, to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. Isn't that cool? Isn't that cool? Yeah. I love that. I love that. All right, so by the time I went to Harding University, I had quit all the drugs, but there was one last thing I hadn't quit yet, and that was cigarettes. Man, cigarettes are hard to quit. Hard to put down. In fact, I had tried many times to quit cigarettes, quit smoking. I tried nicotine gum, nicotine patches. I remember sitting in the living room with my parents one time, and this commercial came on that said, all natural products to help you quit smoking, guaranteed or your money back. And my parents asked me, would you want us to buy that for you so you can try? And I said, sure. We got our money back. It didn't work. Guaranteed or your money back. Yeah, give me my money back. It didn't work. So here I am in college, my first semester, and the first thing I notice, I'm living on campus, and the first thing I notice is all these signs everywhere around campus that says, this is a non-smoking campus. And I was like, okay, that's interesting. Noted. Non-smoking. So if I was going to smoke, I would have to sneak off of campus, And then I get in one of my first classes, which is kinesiology, which means wellness. It's a wellness class. And the professor tells us the first day that, by the way, we're all going to start jogging, and we're going to work our way up to a mile a day by the end of this semester. And I'm like, okay, Lord, I think I get the message. Non-smoking campus, and I've got to start jogging up to a mile. I'm not going to be able to jog and still smoke. That's not going to work, right? So again, I quit with the help of the Lord. No nicotine, just God. Put cigarettes down after smoking for, 8 years, 9 years, I guess. So that was pretty exciting. And then I was looking for a wife and a mother for my son, Eric. And so I prayed my guts out for 2 years. I promise you, I prayed every day. Every day. Lord, please give me a wife. Please. I want a wife so bad. And not even a nibble. No dates, no nothing for 2 years, right? So after 2 years, I kind of gave up. I mean, in a way, I surrendered to God, is how I should say. I surrendered to God's will. I said, Lord, if it's your will to be single for the rest of my life, I'll go along with it. I mean, I like it. I really won't like it. But if that's your will, I'll go with it. And that's when I met Andrea, my wife. So guys, today I have a beautiful, wonderful family, a wife who does ministry with me, and she's so wonderful, she's so supportive. She's doing ministry right now, up with the kids. I have a beautiful family. I've been drug-free for 23 years. I haven't relapsed. And I give all the glory to God. I give all the glory to God. He is the only reason I'm standing up here today. And some praying parents. I told you I had some praying parents that never stopped praying for me. I'm convinced God answered their prayers and my prayers. All right, so lessons learned from the life of Joseph. God's plans and purpose are greater and better than ours. Does anyone believe that this morning? His plans are better. God provides and blesses those who persevere to follow him. He hung in there with God, and God blessed him, Joseph. Suffering to God's people is not always bad. God can use the most painful times of our life for his good. Right. Joseph teaches us the value of self-control in the temptation of youth, patience and perseverance in the time of troubles, honesty, strong work ethic, right? People notice that about him, fear of God and faithfulness to God. Key verse for the life of Joseph, the Lord was with Joseph. Genesis 39:2, God was with him. Lessons learned from my life. Number one, bad company corrupts good character. That's what the Bible says in 1 Corinthians 15:33. Bad company corrupts good character. If I could point to one thing where I got off track, it was when I started hanging out with that different group of friends that were not Christians, that did not have godly values. That is 100% where I got off track. The company you keep matters. So have good Christian friends. Your closest friends should be strong Christian friends. All right. You know, I've wondered many times over the years, like, why did I have to go through all that? Why did I have to go through that whole divorce and custody thing? All I was trying to do was the right thing and support my family, and I didn't do anything wrong. In fact, I even offered to forgive her, and it wasn't fair, right? It's not fair. Why did I have to go through that? Why did I have to go through going to jail and drug addiction and 8 years of drug addiction? And going to college as a single father was hard. It was really hard. But you know what? Today I can minister to people who are either thinking about divorce or going through a divorce. I can minister to and help people who are struggling with addictions. And I wouldn't have been able to do that otherwise. I can understand. I've been where they've been. But most of all, I just want to testify to the power of God. Whatever it is you're going through and you think it's too hard for God to rescue you from, you're wrong. Because nothing is impossible with God. Nothing is impossible with God. If you truly surrender to Him and say, I surrender my will and my life to you, there's nothing impossible. God had a plan. Not that He caused any of that bad stuff that I went through, but He was able to take that bad and turn it for the good, for His kingdom and His glory. God works all things to the good of those who love Him and are called according to His purpose. Romans 8:28. Let's pray.